Well, everyone, welcome to a Thursday edition of the MSP Initiative Live. In a few short days, actually, it's already happening, right? People are converging on Washington, D.C. We'll talk about that here in a second. And we are now finally at the beginning of the NFL season. Got my Eagles jersey on. I'm ready to go. I may not take this off for weeks, as we're going into the season. We've been waiting. I don't know if anybody watched Hard Knocks on HBO. Got me pumped up for the season. Turns out that the Detroit Lions, who are on Hard Knocks, play my Philadelphia Eagles to open up the season in Detroit, and they sold out their season opener, which is the first time, and I think ever, or at least in the last 10 years from what I read. But anyway, I digress. Let's do some quick announcements, and then we'll get into the good stuff, and we'll see where we go. Here we go. You'll find all our stuff on mspinitiative.com. Here you'll find our sessions in podcast and video format. So this session will be posted there along with every other session we've ever done, hundreds going back to March of 2020. Be announcing some giveaways going between now and the end of the year, some really cool ones, and we'll get you some news on that shortly. And then we got 4 things to talk about. First are our MSP community block parties. The first one here in Washington, D.C., this upcoming Monday night. So if you happen to be in Washington, D.C., or the Northeast, or Mid-Atlantic, or going to DattoCon, then you should join us at the Washington Nationals ballpark. That's right, Major League Baseball stadium that they weren't using that day, so we decided to, give it a rental. Okay, so we'll have all sorts of good stuff, including karaoke and speed pitching and batting practice and a whole bunch of other stuff, photo booths and game areas and you name it. This is all in, guys. We're getting crazy. So I think we already have something like almost 800 people pre-registered. I expect probably somewhere around 1,500 plus people to be at this MSP community block party. So if you're an MSP, check this out. Coming up Monday night, rain or shine, we're ready to go. Our second one here, which is we're going to call this the MSP community boat party, is going to be in Fort Lauderdale at the Diplomat Beach Resort, alongside our friends from Taylor Business Group and their big conference. Okay, so if you happen to be in Florida, or you got to come out to, I think we can get you tickets for free if you want to come, but you still got to get there. You want to come to this conference, which has a lot of good speakers, a lot of good, MSPs, some pretty smart guys. Then we want to see you in Fort Lauderdale the week after DattoCon, in Fort Lauderdale, and we're doing this crazy boat party down the intercoastal there, which is always a good time. If you happen to have gone to the very last Autotask Community Live, this was the venue it was at, so we're returning back to the scene, but not of the crime. So, and then lastly, the very last block party we're doing is going to be in Orlando, Wednesday night, November 9th. Circle it on your calendar now. We are flying in the All-American Rejects to do a private concert, and we're also going to have a pretty nice spot here at Icon Park on International Drive. So definitely want to check that out. Definitely throw your name in the hat. We expect a pretty large crowd there as well, because there's a bunch of other events happening in town at that time. So we'll be right in the thick of those things. The very last thing that I'll throw in there is we also are, plugging our friends here, Paco and his partner. They're running an event called TechCon Unplugged in Chicago. So not this weekend, but next weekend, they're throwing a pretty cool little 2-3 day event, 2.5 day event in Chicago. Pretty cool setup. I like their stuff. I think it's going to be good. It's going to be right out of the airport there area in O'Hare. So quick in, quick out. So check out TechCon Unplugged. Wow, that was a mouthful. Oh, I almost forgot. Last but not least, 3 more of the Channel Strong Tour. So we had 8 scheduled for this year. We're down to week 6, 7, and 8. So if you're in Denver, Tulsa, Topeka, St. Louis for week 6, it's the end of September. Vegas, Phoenix, California. That's going to be the end, not quite the end of October, 17th to the 21st. and then Fort Lauderdale, Tampa, Orlando, and Atlanta at the very end of November going into December. We're coming to your backyard. If you're an MSP, you're in those areas. We don't expect you to get on a plane, train, or boat, but if you jump in your car and drive down the street, you can join us, and we'll have some pretty cool conversation, and we'll learn a few things, and beers and sandwiches included. So now I'm done. All this stuff between now and the end of the year, that's a lot of stuff. Now I'm going to bring in my guest speaker, Steve. How you doing today, Steve?
Good. How you doing, George? Good to see you.
I'm like parched now that I had to go through all of those announcements.
I don't know how you keep up with it all. You're always on the move. It's just amazing.
It's a lot. It's a lot. But you know what? Sometimes it's better than staying in the cave. I think we had like 2 years of that, right?
Yeah, it's true. Now you got to make up for it.
I'm trying to, like, make up for lost time.
But I'm excited for the NFL season too. We're big Ravens fans here, so we're just right down the street from you. But
yeah, no, I mean, I think I thought it was a joke. I thought it was one of those memes, but I guess the Ravens mascot got injured in the preseason.
Take it out, yeah.
And I saw the mascot on the trainer cart to go back to the locker room. I thought it was funny, but no, the guy actually got hurt.
The whole team gets hurt. The mascot gets hurt. It's like endless.
And then, of course, your quarterback's trying to, like, he's like, hey, if the contract's not done by the time the season starts, don't talk to me.
Right. That's tomorrow.
Yeah. So I don't think that's going to get done, Steve. Just going to be honest.
It is what it is. Yeah.
Right. So why don't we, Steve is actually based out of the Baltimore-ish DC area. It's all kind of smashed together. He's on the Maryland side, not the Virginia side, because, DC sandwiched in between the two, as we know, because we're going to be down there in a few days. Steve's like going to just drive down the street because he's like, already his home, right?
The home game, right? It's about 15 minutes away. I'll be Dead O'Connor. Can't wait to go. It's gonna be exciting.
Awesome. So why don't we get a little bit of background, Steve, for people who don't know you? Your journey down technology lane. Your history in like kind of that call it the sandbox, right? And then we'll talk a little bit about your company, Choice Cyber. And then we'll get into current events because there's plenty of those.
Great. Again, my name is Steve Rutkovitz, CEO at Choice Cyber Solutions. I was an MSP for 21 years. So actually, I started in 95. I was by myself, started as an MSP. I built a company to about 40 people over a 21-year period. So we started kind of as a VAR, then we got into the recurring revenue we learned and managed services. We started evolving into that. And over time, we got really good at it, became pretty proficient at it. And being in the Baltimore, Washington area, a lot of the clients that we had were government contractors, medical, financial, and I would get all these requirements for cybersecurity and compliance. So we became a real student of compliance and cybersecurity. And lo and behold, in 2017, my competitor came to me down the street and went to an acquisition. So we sold them the managed services with 300 clients. And I spun off a pure play company called Choice Cybersecurity, just to do compliance and cybersecurity for MSPs. Because a lot of MSPs have different types of clients, and you're getting requests for HIPAA or CMMC or ISO, SOC 2 audits, and you really can't step up for it, but it creates a lot of work. So, you can partner with us and we can help you with your compliance. Now, I just tripped you up a little bit. Just want to make sure I don't confuse anybody. We were Choice Cybersecurity, and we recently rebranded to Choice Cyber Solutions. And the reason is we didn't want to have any confusion with MSPs, because MSPs are doing more and more cybersecurity solutions. We're more the compliance guys, and we went to solutions just to make sure that there's no confusion in the branding.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining. Looks like we got a few people that jumped on the call today, so I always let them jump in whenever they want to, right? And in that way, it's open conversation, right? But I mean, every time we turn, Steve, there's always some sort of cyber issue. I mean, it's definitely at the top of the conversation. I feel like every other conversation starts with this, right? I don't care whether it's the cyber insurance issue. I was following a couple of threads on this, and I think somebody just said, at what point does the small business give up on adding cyber insurance because it's just not affordable? And anyway, I thought that was interesting. It's like, well, it's too expensive, so we're just not going to have it. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Move, like, hey, we're just not going to do it at all. We'll just go with no insurance, like driving my car down the street, like, not going to get into an accident. But what's your opinion now? Like, as you talk to people, you consult with people, you understand the pain that the MSP sees and feels. We've heard different people come up with different strategies about how to kind of communicate with the insurance company and underwriters behind them to try and work things out. But I mean, it just seems to be getting more and more difficult. Is there an acceptable standard? Meaning, like, it's never going to stop. It's always going to get more detailed. But like, is there an acceptable amount of things that need to be done to be called, I'm doing the modern day best practice, rather than, hey, every time something new comes out every 30 days, now I'm diving into the next tunnel there. What do you think?
Right. So as you know, security is in layers, and I do think there's an acceptable layer of levels of security for depending on what type of business you're in. And let's say you're, in a government contractor, and you have to protect CUI or controlled unclassified data. There's requirements that you need. So layers are actually higher. But like if you're a law firm, or you're an MSP as a client as a law firm, they don't really have a federal compliance. So it's kind of up to you, the MSP, to put these layers in place, and maybe even talk about it best practices. So I think you have to look at it by vertical for your clients, and then you have to kind of look at it separately for your business. But you bring up the insurance. I never thought I wanted to become an expert in cyber insurance,
Right?
but because we do so many risk assessments and so tied together, I really had to come up to speed on it. And one of the things that MSP should really understand is that there's a big difference between cyber insurance and errors and omissions. Right. So as an MSP, if there's a mistake made in a firewall or something is left open, whatever, or the weak password, a lot of that is errors and omissions and not cyber. So people think you need all this cyber insurance, when really an MSP or a services company, a professional services company, needs to look at their errors and omissions. Is going to be way more important, probably, a 90-10, for MSP. So that's just one thing to consider. And there's things like that as you turn these rocks over, you start to learn, just by, asking questions and just going down this path.
Yeah. So I've had 3 people now come to me with different angles. I keep on repeating them because they're just people who went the extra step other than just talking to the person that answers the phone to give them a quote. One guy asked to speak to the underwriter so that he could get past these yes and no questions on the questionnaire that just were black and white, right? That didn't really make sense to him, and like negotiated through the conversation with the underwriter to like get to the end, other than just filling out a questionnaire and like, hoping that it's okay. Another guy said, hey, this questionnaire is not good enough, and then attached an entire package of stuff, like kind of stapled to the questionnaire, sent it back and said, hey, I couldn't really answer some of these questions the way you have them laid out, so I've attached all this follow-up documentation to basically cut through, to what we think is the actual situation rather than what you say that it is. And then the last guy literally called up and said, if I were to I'm not making a claim, but let's say I'm making a claim. What's the process? Who do I talk to? What happens? And literally went through a mock cyber insurance claim submission, found out who the incident response person is behind them and what the policy is and what the procedure is, and then effectively changed their entire process to model out after what actually happens at the insurance company level, which I think that was the most, kind of out of the box way to figure out what's what. It seems like we're going to extraordinary lengths to figure out how to prevent a 300% premium increase.
Right. So there's 2 things you said. One is filling out the form. So every insurance company seems to put out a different form, and there's no 2 that are the same. And the problem with the forms are, if you don't fill them out right for either yourself or your client, and something happens, that's the first thing they dust off. And if something's not filled out right, they're not going to pay the claim. So you got to make sure the forms are filled out right. And a lot of what we do is help, our client, MSP's clients, make sure those forms are filled out right. The right compliance or right to fact, whatever the question is, you have to fill them out honestly. So if it's a no, just put no. Don't say, I have it, or you can put a future date, but don't say yes if it doesn't have it. It's very important. You'd rather get rejected the insurance and get the insurance and not get the claim paid. So that's what we're finding out with is very important. Now, I've been involved in dozens and dozens of forensics work. I used to do a lot of forensics work back in as far as 2000. So I've been called into every kind of scenario you can imagine: ransomware, inside attacks, you can't even imagine. They're very stressful to be involved in, but I can tell you, if you got an incident response, you have disaster recovery, you have backups, all these things laid out, which are really compliances frameworks, then the insurance doesn't cascade, right? So for example, if your data is encrypted and you get a breach, the first thing you want to know is if the data left the facility. Well, if you're a HIPAA and you have your data encrypted, you don't have to notify, you can't get fined for a breach. So if you know these things and you're planning up front, you can stop these things almost in their tracks with kind of like some basic forensics. You don't have to notify, because once you start notifying, then the thing just turns into a wildfire and it gets very expensive bringing the attorneys in and et cetera. So a lot of the work, if it's done up front, can save you a lot on the back end. And the insurance companies are starting to appreciate the work that's done up front when they're writing these premiums.
Okay. So you kind of separated, like there's the actual technology part of it, right? Hey, what's in place? What technologies were implemented ahead of time, and encryption and all this. Then there's the actual breach notification law part, right? And like that part can actually get kind of expensive too, right? Depending on what state you're in. Every state has different laws, right?
I've been on the call with attorneys, somebody gets the attorney, there could be 6 guys on the call because they don't really know either. And they're tag teaming $500 an hour. I'm like, this is $3,000 an hour. And they're like, well, do we notify, they had 30,000 patients. And they're like, well, we don't know what records went out, so we have to notify 30,000 people. And I said, oh, wait a second. Let's get a forensics guy in here. Let's see if the data got out. Well, the forensics guy doesn't have the right tools to know if something got out or not. He's kind of rendering an opinion. So then at some point you got to say, well, I don't think the data got out, but you got to cover your butt. So you got to notify 30,000 people. And that can get very, very, very costly, because not only do you have to notify them, you have to have them under for a year under the breach notification kind of software monitoring.
Yeah, so like the credit bureau stuff. And
yes, it gets very, very expensive. So I've been involved managing these breaches. I don't like to do them because they're too stressful, but once in a while I get sucked into them. But usually if the work's done up front, you can stop these things almost in its tracks. 50,000 or less, most of it's going to forensics work to prove or disprove the data left.
Okay, so since you've been in the trench, like I think this is the first time we've had somebody that's actually been in the middle of all these permutations, right? We've been talking hypotheticals forever. Let's actually hear it. I mean, don't, obviously if there's NDAs, don't hurt yourself, and I don't need names, right? But give me the worst case scenario you've seen. Like, what is like everything went wrong, nothing was right, and like the whole thing was just Chernobyl?
The worst thing I ever saw, I think the worst thing I ever saw was a medical practice. Because remember, medical practices and certain clients you have as an MSP, they have clients coming. You can't stop it. It's like a real estate company where you kind of schedule things. This is like people coming through the door all day long. And a gastroenterology specialty practice with 15 doctors could see hundreds of patients a day, right? So what happened is we got a call that all their data was gone. Right, so they had an MSP or somebody was managing their system. We had bid on the contract, our price was high, we didn't get it, but all the data was gone and they didn't trust their MSP, so they called us in to do forensics work. We spent a couple weeks in there and we started realizing that the data was gone several times. It was missing. They'd come in and nothing was there, and patients are coming in, they couldn't chart, they couldn't see allergies, they couldn't see what the last medicines were they gave the patients. Doctors are freaking out. Long story short, it turned out that the MSP had a disgruntled employee that got fired, and he sabotaged the system inside. So the passwords, still had usernames, still had access to the entire system, and he wound up erasing the data several times, and nobody could figure it out. We had a really sharp guy on our team, and it was like recreating a bomb scene. We had to look at all the logs and trace it back to this outside person. So, it just tells you when, your client's employees leave, you have to have a good offboarding process. If your internal MSP employees, turn, you have to have a good internal offboarding process. So that was probably the worst thing I ever saw, but I've seen, other things as bad.
Okay. That's crazy, by the way. That's straight up criminal issue, right? I mean, let's be fair. I mean,
Yeah.
Dude was terminated, went in, started deleting stuff. That's bad news.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the best case scenario you've ever seen?
Best case scenario is a few months back, I had a client when I had the managed services business, haven't talked to him in 5 years. He got a ransomware. Has about 50,000 patients on his EMR system. He's been around for a long time. He gets hit with ransomware. Shut his system down. He was down to a halt. And by the time I got there, he already had talked to his attorneys, right? So that was his first call. And they wanted to notify, 50,000 patients because they, let everybody know there was a breach and whatnot. And I said, well, before we do all that, let's get a forensics guy in. So we got a forensics guy in that I know that does a lot of the forensics work. And he basically was able to map out that no data left. So under HIPAA, you don't have to notify if data didn't leak. And we were able to prove that the data never leaked. And therefore, we were able to stop it in its tracks. I think it cost him $25,000 total for the whole forensics and the opinion. And if we weren't in there, this thing would have cascaded into probably a $500,000 claim. Attorneys, making several $100,000 of it.
Wow.
That's a good one.
Okay. Listen, whole rainbow in between those two scenarios.
Yeah.
So like, what are the top things that you're seeing? Like sometimes there's no MSP involved, but let's say there is an MSP involved. What are the things that the top gotchas that these guys just didn't do? We already heard about, hey, they didn't shut off access for the guy that left. Got it. Check. Number one, clear as day. What other things are these people missing? Like that they find out at the worst possible time, right? After an event happened and now they're in the middle of something. And these are the hey, if you had just done these simple things, you would be out of trouble.
Well, as things evolve, it's getting better, right? So one of the big things that we see, we do a lot of risk assessments because my whole world is trying to be preventive so companies never have these problems. And we're getting really good at the preventive side and working with MSPs to help them get their clients preventive. But probably the biggest thing, and I know it sounds really basic, is your biggest defense against all this is a good backup. But the problem with backups is you don't test them until you need them, right? So the test is, hey, I got to do a restore. So, with certain certifications like CMMC, whatever, you have to have quarterly restores and you have to test these backups. So, if you're asking, one basic thing MSPs can do is make sure they're testing backwards backups and disaster recovery plans on a regular basis. You can be semi-annually, maybe once or twice a year.
Is the screenshot verification enough? I'm hearing no. That's what I'm hearing.
I say no. And the other thing that I find is some of these ransomware programs are in these systems for more than 60 days, and they're changing like extension files and whatnot. And some of these backups only go back a couple of weeks. So, there's a combination of making sure the backups work and making sure your retention is at least 90 days of a daily, because you may have to roll back 30, 60, almost 90 days to get a clean backup. So we've seen that happen as well. So just making sure it's being tested, you can roll back. That's probably the best thing you can do. And then second to that is making sure you have some kind of two-factor authentication across the board. And we're seeing two-factor authentication hacks. I'm getting calls for those, and they're really weird. But I'm seeing more of those. But I think two-factor, if done right, in a kind of a single sign-on kind of environment, and making sure everything's two-factor, it goes a long way in protecting your system as well.
All right, let me ask you a question now. We're running into a lot of people who are like, oh, yeah, MFA's on, but I set up conditional access so that the people at the office don't ever have to do it. I mean, I get that the feature's there, but does that even qualify that two-factor was turned on?
Well, it helps. It's almost like, BitLocker, right? So if you get a stolen laptop, you can't get in the machine, but if somebody logs into the laptop, if it's connected to the internet, you lose all your data. It's the same scenario. So the two-factor, should have timeouts. That if you're not, actively working on the system for more than 15 minutes or something, you should have to log back in with a two-factor. The fact that you're logged in, if the system gets hacked, somebody's coming right into your system, they're getting all the crown jewels. So it's the same kind of scenario. It's guarding you against maybe a nighttime attack, but if you're being lazy about it, it's not going to protect you against somebody, getting into your system.
I mean, I would think of a nightmare scenario where, listen, if you turn on all the right stuff, let's say you're just using Microsoft and not a third party. Microsoft's already said 10,000 organizations have been bypassed on MFA. Well, I mean, like, that's their tech, right? How did that happen? Help us do it better. But if you just like turned on the defaults and then said, well, hey, if they're at the office, they never have to do this. Like, to me, that's just like you left the front door open. There was no lock. They just walked right in. And I can imagine the insurance company saying, yeah, no, you didn't actually do what we asked you to do.
Well, the question doesn't say on that form. It just says, do you have 2FA? Yes or no, right? So it's not saying, do you have 2FA with a 15-minute, timeout? It's not asking those questions. So some are getting more sophisticated, but we're seeing more of the questionnaires are coming from clients. Like what you see is like most MSPs are working with small to medium-sized clients, and these small clients are working with GSKs of the world, these big, Fortune 500 companies. And they have teams of CISOs, and they're bringing in the giant questionnaires. And these questionnaires ask, I have a whole page just on 2FA. So we wind up spending a lot of time filling those forms out for the MSP and their clients. But the insurance companies aren't that sophisticated, but the clients with CISOs are asking very, very, 10-page, 20-page, very specific questions.
What are you hearing about this? Like, I feel like the technology is evolving just a little bit. It's been out. I mean, the terminology has been out for a few years now, 2 years at least. The SASE, right? This kind of edge computing, kind of evolution of VPN, I guess, where like they only turn on access to just the things that you need and kind of like flip the concept of VPN around, right? Does that help you? I would assume because you're going more into like the zero trust. I know zero trust is abused now as a marketing term, but I mean, does that, the least amount of access, the better off you are in the event there's a problem, no?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm a student of different, like, as you say, categories, and I'm studying that category right now. But the bigger conversation, and again, how you solve it, is really shadow IT. So as people start working remotely and laptops and working from home or wherever, they're kind of downloading whatever apps they want. So, and then they get kind of lazy. Well, I want to copy documents. I just copy them on my my Dropbox. So I'm used to Dropbox and I like it, but it's not an approved product for the company. And who knows if the security is right on it? Because a lot of these cloud companies, they say they're secure, but they don't tell you how to set it up. Like if you get Google Mail, if you don't enable two-factor, you don't have it, right? So when we do a risk assessment and we do a scan, we're seeing upward of hundreds, 300 programs on a single machine, and a company may only approve 8. So the whole shadow IT is really, like you said, is just access to the things that you need and only those things. So if you approve it's a corporate laptop and you can get into these 8 applications, that really should be the DLP, or you should have blocking everything but that. And then
there's a bunch of applications that are MSP friendly, right? There's like Threat Locker, and there's who's the other guy? Like, basically there's an app, right? When somebody goes to install something on the computer, the MSP Auto Elevate, right? There's different these like application control solutions out there. But to be honest with you, sometimes they're a little bit cumbersome. And I'll also go another step and say, a lot of people think like that's not enough, right? But like alone.
Right, but each company is a little bit different. So, if you're worried about sensitive data leaving, then you can put in what's called DLP, or data loss prevention policies, and only allow sensitive data to go to OneDrive or whatever, and you can block it to others. So the tools are getting better and better, and each type of company is, can be a little unique based on what they have. Microsoft 365 has DLP rules built into the email. Right, so if you set it up properly, you can block or tag things to be automatically encrypted. So the tools are getting better and better, and it takes time to figure it out. The key is if you do an assessment, you can look at all the good things companies have in place and then look for those gaps. And then you have to try to understand how companies work and what sensitive data they have and what you need to protect. And because you got to be careful, you can't put so many layers in. I used to get the call, get this stuff out of here, I can't work. You get so much security, I can't work. And then, you loosen everything up. So there's always a balance between tightening these things up and making sure you don't interfere with, companies' workflow.
That's always the balance. It's, like every time you got to put something in, it's like, hey, you're preventing me from actually getting to the point where I can get stuff done.
Right. So that's something we're very sensitive to.
Yeah, 100%. Big picture, right? I would say that, if you're in a compliance industry, right, you're in, medical, or, a lot of people are getting, kind of vacuumed into CMMC because they're like a sub of a sub of a sub of somebody who has a government contract somewhere, or maybe it's financial services, right? They got their own stuff. I mean, every industry somewhere along the line has something, or maybe nothing, depending on who you're dealing with. I mean, but it's starting to they're all starting to really overlap, right? Like you need to have certain pieces, in place. You need to have certain policies created. Now I'm sure everybody wants everybody to have an incident response plan. And like, it seemed, I hate when people are like, hey, just send me a copy of what you have. And then they just change the name and, like, oh, here's my plan. I feel like people get in trouble now because, they think, oh, it's one size fits all. But I do think there's certain things that every MSP really has to have in place. What are you seeing? What are the, like, sounds like incident response is like almost a must have now, but like, what else are you seeing as things that are ubiquitous across all these compliances?
Yeah, so I would call it, it's like the top dozen policies. But so you can't do a policy till you figure out all the pieces and how it all works, and the policy is the last thing. But if I always try to rattle them off, but like incident response, that's not something you want to figure out after something happens. You want to really plan that out up front. We do a lot of work with CMMC. We're certified with the DoD as RPOs. They have very specific ways that the whole incident response has to be done. But if you're a law firm or accounting firm, you just want to follow best practices for incident response. Business continuity, which is different than disaster recovery. That is, if nobody can show up at work and you got to keep things running, it's more probability that you have a business continuity issue than you will disaster, right? So business continuity is usually a policy that has to be thought out and planned, and then you write the policy. Disaster recovery, access control, to your point, who can access what, it should be limited. So access control.
And we're not just talking about access control, like the badge to get into the building. We're talking about who has access to what data, what systems, right?
Right, it's all those things, access to the building. Because remember, in all these compliances, you have a technical, administrative, and physical component. And that physical component could be card access or cameras or whatever, depending on the compliance. And then it gets into others, awareness training. Some MSPs you work with do the awareness training. Sometimes we do it for them, but you need to have regular phishing testing. You want to push the policies out, let people attest to them. So there's a whole policy that's written about the whole training, and you have to execute on that. So there's about a dozen or so policies that most of these compliances have as a common thread. And that's kind of like your NIST ISO world. But now we're starting to see a lot of privacy compliances being thrown in around GDPR, California CCPA. So a lot of what's happening is we're getting requests for multiple compliances within a organization. And we do a lot of SOC audits, but again, it depends on the business. And sometimes they don't have anything. We'll recommend a best practices just so they have a structure, right? We'll do a basic NIST or a basic ISO just to put something in place so we have a basic structure, and then we can build the policies and procedures around it, and we're going to proactively protect them. The chances of a company with a framework in place or a compliance getting attacked is minuscule compared to a company that's just winging it.
How much, let me go this way. How much is it, because there's a lot of stuff that's not federal, right? Like each state has adopted their own version of whatever, right? You mentioned California with the privacy. I think Massachusetts has something. I think New York has something. Like how much of this is where you do business and how much of this is where your customer may ultimately have someone, right? Because now that people are all working from everywhere, right? Like your company may be headquartered in Maryland, but they have an employee in South Dakota. I mean, it could be anywhere.
So when we do these risk assessments, we start asking a lot of questions. So 50 of the 50 states right now have state PII laws, personal identifiable information laws. And if the data gets out, you're getting sued, right, by the attorney general, whatever in each state. So each state has similar laws and fines. But, I talk to MSPs, and every MSP knows that there's 50 of these states have this. And it's not just the state your client is main offices, it's all the states you're doing business in. So if they're a financial company, they have a client in New York, they have to have New York DFS. So you have to really ask a lot of questions about, where a company's headquarters, where their clients are, and you have to figure out kind of the state laws. 8 of the states now have privacy laws. Nevada, Vermont, Virginia, California, they have privacy laws. If you have clients that are from Europe, you have GDPR, right? So you have to follow that. So that's just the state, and then you have federal laws. So federal laws would be like HIPAA, CMMC, the DoD. So that's federally mandated. And then you don't have many international compliances. The only international compliance, you want to take a guess at it? The only international compliance.
Didn't there used to be a privacy shield that went overseas, but I think they kind of got rid of that. Like, did they replace it?
That was European. It's actually PCI because the credit card companies did it, and they did it worldwide. So it's the only international compliance. But when you do an assessment, a risk assessment, we look at the risk. We also try to figure out if something were to happen, who do they have to report to, or what their exposure could be. And you have to kind of go through that maze.
Well, hopefully everybody's figured out the game. Don't hold on to credit card data and you don't have a problem, right?
Right. But what you see is a lot of people went to online credit cards or Visa, and nobody ever deleted the old data. So we see 10 years worth of credit card history data. Even if somebody said, I don't have any data, I went to the web a year ago. They never deleted the data. See, we see all kinds of crazy stuff.
That's crazy, man. It really is. Sounds like there's a footprint or a blueprint that everybody should be following. Here's my buddy Keith Nelson. That if he was on earlier, he'd be talking all about this. So Keith has also been brought in on the California side to go in and say, hey, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, Keith, but you've testified in trials where you're like, yeah, the MSP said that they, on their website that they did this, and this, but like didn't even have logs enabled on their firewall. I don't know what the hell they said they were doing.
Well, first of all, I must say that is the ugliest jersey I've ever seen in my life.
Hey.
And I was just wondering, are you broadcasting from the Kremlin? Because that's not an American.
No, the Kremlin does everything on typewriters now so that they don't get hacked. Did you know that?
Yeah. Your point is what happens is, and it's a drawback of our industry. When you have an undefined business and you start getting into court, people say, well, what made you what you claim to be? What made you an MSP? Well, I knew how to spell it. What made you add an F? And so in basic, and I'm not a lawyer, we have friends that are, but there's laws of unscrupulous advantage across almost every state. If I should know more than you should, then I can't take advantage of that in a negotiation. So the problem we're running into in California are material misrepresentations. I will keep your network secure. And a lot of them are on the templates MSPs buy, which makes me feel sorry for them in some ways. They're buying this template and it says things that they can't do. And then I think another issue, quite frankly, is we think technology solves everything. And when you start talking about like PCI compliance and credit card retention and so on, a lot of that's procedural. We deal in the hospitality industry. Since I'm paying for one now, you pay for a wedding over a year or 2 years. And so it is procedurally easier for sales and so on, is to take that credit card and retain it in the system, or worse, write it down in a folder and run it every 3 months when they do your quarterly. So the challenge comes in between what is security and what aligns with business processes that up to this point have been, for lack of a better word, best practices, right? And so you start running into, issues of, and like I said, we did testify in a couple of them where we do the review, the forensic, and say, you don't even have a syslog server set up. So your firewall is virtually useless. And then to find the guy said, well, I didn't even know that. His extent of training was, I took it from XYZ vendor, which 99% of that training is how to sell their, piece of hardware and not how to manage it. So I think there's an assumption along, someone learned it somewhere, and you're going, well, where's the somewhere?
Steve, let me throw this back at you. Have you seen situations where the end user files a claim with the insurance company and then the insurance company turns back around and sues the MSP?
No, what I see is that the policies are so different that I'll see somebody make a claim and they get a check the next week, and I'll see somebody file almost the same exact claim and not get reimbursed at all. Black and white. But I've never seen where the insurance company reversed or took a check back.
Okay. Well, I'm not saying that they didn't put the check out, but if they're saying, hey, the end customer had a policy, but hey, maybe the MSP was like really just negligent in what they said they were delivering. And so it's almost like a car accident, right? Hey, I'm gonna pay your claim because I'm insuring you, but I'm gonna go after the other guy because it's really their fault, right?
So
And I'm gonna go after.
Well, that's interesting. I've seen it where so when the data is collected, even like, and Keith, you can talk better to this than I can, but if it's a medical office, that's their patient's records. If those patients' records are entered into an EMR, right, and that they get breached, I've seen situations where the insurance company won't pay on a claim because of a third party. They want to make that company go after somebody else because the data is somewhere else. So the question always is, who owns the data? And that's kind of a gray area, especially with the cloud.
You bring up an excellent point, because we're just arguing this with a client who says, well, we don't store the data. It's in the EMR that we use. And
The
I'm
cloud,
going,
right? Yeah.
Read HIPAA again. Says if you enter, transmit, or store. So each point has some liability. And so, I just, from what we're seeing in California's sues more than anyone else, so that's probably important to preface. Insurance companies are looking for contingent and subject liability. And I think that's going to happen more and more, where they're saying, you filled out a form that said these were in place. That material representation was made by your provider. And those safeguards were not in place or properly adhered to.
Right. And I see the gray area as data leaked, going from the medical office to the EMR. And then the question is, whose breach was it? Was it the data leak on its way out of the medical office, or the leak on its way out? So it's really a gray area. You got to spend a lot of time. And a lot of it just comes down to negotiation and having good policy. Like, for example, I'll give you a perfect example. This happened this year. I got calls for 2 different wire transfers, about the same amount. It's like $250,000 that got transferred. One got transferred, Wells Fargo claim or whatever, and it got paid because they had wire transfer insurance in the policy. Next company didn't have it, the wire transfer. Nobody knew to compare, and at $250,000, it just had to say goodbye to it because there was no insurance. So there's a lot of that going on, that no two policies are the same, and almost like a backup. You don't know you have a problem until you have the claim or you need it. And that's
250,000 is a lot of money to me.
Yeah, it's a big number.
No, not you, George.
I still
to me,
think
it's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. All right, let's do some quick current events, because then you only have a little bit of time left. Keith, I had to open up with this one. This is what they do in California now, since you're not allowed to charge your cars. because there's an electricity problem. You know, you get a generator, you put it on the back of your Tesla, and then you just plug it into the power port. What do you think?
First of all, that's hilarious. Second of all, my son got my son a Chevy Bolt EV, whatever it is, and he has solar on his house.
Yeah.
And so he was charging during the day, and they came by and said, we don't know if that's okay. Because it was during the whatever we call
Peak
it,
hours,
alert.
right? Yeah.
And so you're going, well, he's not charging off the grid.
California is becoming a very difficult place. First, hey, we only want everybody to have electric cars, but we don't have enough electricity to power them.
Well, Newsom
technically
said, we're going to have it by the time that comes into effect. No description of how or where, or you know, you bring up a topic we can talk about forever, because now California says
We might have to have a whole session on this, I think.
yeah, maybe we should go back to nuclear. And you're going, well, I was always a fan of nuclear, but not reopening things like San Onofre that haven't been maintained for the last 25 years. You're going.
I'll leave this one comment because I got a bunch of good stuff that we need to go into. But so Germany, right? They were like, hey, we're going to shut down the rest of our nuclear power plants. Of course, now this whole Russia thing, they shut down all the gas and the power and the oil and all that jazz. And then like, you know, they're like, oh, well, we'll just turn the nuclear back on if we need it. And then the nuclear power plant operators like, you can't, it's not just a light switch. Like if you shut the plant down, the fire it back up again takes like another year. Anyway, I digress. You know, politicians in power.
What scares me is, will they be diligent in the security checks when there's political pressure to flip a switch?
Oh yeah, we'll get, that'll be a whole nother session for another day. Next one. If anybody knows our friends over at SAS Alert, just in, Walter Brown, Queen Elizabeth has passed away.
I just got that too.
Wow. Well, we know what's going to happen now. It's like a new pope. Anyway, SAS Alert's $22 million investment from Insight Partners. Darren, you're on the line. Who do Insight Partners invest in?
I don't even want to know.
Starts with a K.
Hold on. Yeah, great. Yeah.
But anyway, $22 million investment, which now's not exactly the best time for investment money, but here you go. It is coming out. And I guess congrats to the guys over there, Jim Lippy, who who's been around the industry for some time, and some other people who are working there that have been at other stops. Congratulations to those guys. Another company that's maybe not as channel recognizable. These guys just got 70 million. This company called Simulate. But effectively, this is automated continuous security testing. Maybe Steve or Keith have heard of these guys, but
they do. It's all basically a pen test. Was, you do your vulnerability scans and you bring in a human to actually try to capture the flag or break in. Some of these companies are trying to automate that process by simulating the attack through automation and not through a human. It saves a lot of time and money. I've seen it. It doesn't do what a human can do yet, but I think in time it probably will.
So that's 141 million. And then they added another 70. I think so. That's cumulative. So there's money in it. All these security people, even though the market's maybe not in the best position it's ever been in, they are definitely in a place to capture some outside investor money, because it's still out there. Of course, as we've been talking about it now for a while, Apple finally came out with their updated iWatch, iPhone. Darren's laughing in the background, says,
no, hold on, George. The watch, I like the Ultra watch. I will say, we got to have that. I like it.
Okay, the ruggedized Ultra watch you've been waiting for.
Even though I'm still Android, but I you still carry an iPhone sometimes, so you got to have that, right?
Okay.
I admit to drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
I am an Apple guy.
Looks nice.
Yeah, and I'll probably be one of the ones that runs out and gets it just because it's sitting there.
Yeah, and then the 14, right? Like, they came out with a whole range of the new ones, and then like the most expensive one is like $1,100, right? Although they said that it doubled the battery hour, so now the battery goes to 60 hours of battery life, and I think we can all attest to a time when you ran out of juice when you didn't need to. That's pretty good.
I don't know, my 13 gets awesome battery life. I bought that extra battery and have never used it.
Wow.
It's the first time ever that I've had a
No.
phone.
Guy with the
I
Tesla.
mean, really, but Keith, who is really giving you a lot of calls? Come on, Keith. I mean, really.
You don't know the amount of Dallas Cowboy alerts I get all day long.
Oh, this is true. We know that. We 100% know that.
Carrying
Surprised.
a Tesla with the generator, that extra battery.
Exactly. Just keep it going. Keep on getting some fuel. At $7 a gallon. Avaya, I mean, apparently their CEO was ousted. They put a new person in. They're laying off a bunch of people, like every other big company and tech company out there. It seems like they're in dire times. So I guess these guys never really figured it out after they kind of outsourced their cloud offering to Ring Central. But there you go. Another company in the red. These guys will be at DattoCon, but Netapp is jumping into the MSP game. Okay. I guess Netapp I always thought was more of an enterprise play, but apparently they're coming out with a new offering. But basically, they're going to be offering this new solution and service program and cloud, stack that they're going to announce over there at DattoCon, it looks like.
That is interesting because they were an elite storage company years ago.
Yeah, no, they're still very much in storage, but I mean, apparently they're going to roll out this subscription-based, called Spot PC. So I guess Netapp acquired Cloud Jumper, and they're going to be rolling out their own virtual PC platform to compete with Azure and stuff. So check this out. They're going to be at DattoCon if you're going to be there. If not, just Google Spot PC, see what they have to say.
Yeah, I saw them at CompT, and they went through their offering. So it's interesting.
Well, tell us, give us a 30-second. What are they trying to accomplish there, Steve?
What they're trying to do is a virtual desktop. So basically, for an MSP, they basically set the machines up. They basically configure them, all the applications, all the security, everything, and you just resell their services. And it's, they're doing the lion's share of the work.
Wow.
That's really where they're going.
So in your business, if the data left, it's their problem, not the customer's problem?
Well, in theory, they take the biggest risk because their virtual desktop is kind of a closed system. The risk comes in when the email goes out or when data is transferred or whatever, but they do take the lion's share of the risk in their data centers. That's correct.
There it is.
Really
Last one, just, this is like a drive-by. Looks like Ingram Micro continues to try and change their cloud and, their platform. So everybody keeps on investing into more automation, more cloud distribution, better to the experience. So if you're doing Ingram Micro, check out X Advantage. I just saw that come out today. A lot of people are doing business with some of the more MSP centric guys, but sometimes you got to give some room to the big guys when they try and come back and do some things. So those are current news of the day. We did that all in like less than 15 minutes. How about that?
I understand you're representing us at DattoCon and you'll be telling us all the good Kaseya stories going on.
I mean, I will surely be there. And by the way, are you not going to DattoCon, Mr. Nelson?
No, I have.
We will do MSP Initiative live from DattoCon.
Oh, good.
So we'll be cluing you in to what guys like Darren are going to hear in person, which is what are they going to do with this company, with this Datto ship that they acquired. But yeah, I'm sure we'll hear all sorts of interesting things. And I know I've had at least 7 conversations where people are like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm waiting to DattoCon to hear what the plan is before I make a decision. And I'm like, okay, let's hear it. It's right around the corner now. Sunday.
Yeah.
So we will report that from left my phone on do not disturb. We'll report that from live.
Like every industry, but this one's too. It's like they're down to the final 4, final 4 players.
So we'll be broadcasting at 1:00 on Tuesday. We'll tell you what we hear. I mean, and we'll see what they say. And then on Thursday again, we'll do another one and we'll see what happens.
I hear you're putting on the biggest party in the history of MSP.
I mean, we did go through a whole bunch of stuff at the beginning of the show, but Yeah, the MSP Community Block Party in DC Monday night at Washington Nationals Ballpark.
Can't wait.
I say it's going to be the second biggest, and I think the biggest is going to be in Orlando on November 9th on International Drive.
That's the ConnectWise.
I mean, there's many events happening during that time. I'm just going to put my thing right in between all of them. How about that?
I'll be down there for that.
Oh, yeah. We'll make sure you get there. And there'll
Yeah.
be plenty of cigars, freshly rolled.
Bet that's all I need to hear.
That's a checkbox. Don't worry about that. We have that on lock. Maybe Steve will join us on that one too.
I'll
Steve's
try to
on-
make it down there, but I'll see you. I'll see you in a few days.
Yeah,
DC.
we're gonna hopefully take over Washington D.C. in a way that is safe, because we want to make sure people don't wander off in the wrong direction and bad things happen. But yeah, I'm excited. I mean, listen, DattoCon, IT Nation, for example, they still did their event last year, but DattoCon, this is took 3 years to come back, right? San Diego was the last time, and then they couldn't get it off the ground. There was Atlanta, there was we're supposed to be Seattle, and it just never came to fruition. So I will warn everyone going to Washington DC. 1, parking is expensive. 2, if you do the scooters and they're there, you cannot just abandon your scooter on any corner like any other city. You actually have to chain your scooter up against something.
Huh.
I don't know if that tells you anything, but if you don't take a picture of your scooter chained against a fence or a tree or whatever, then you got problems. And I got to tell you, it's really expensive. When I went down there a few months back to kind of get a lay of the land for DattoCon and this party that we're throwing, I spent more money on my scooter than I did parking my car. So I digress. Pay attention to your app costs. And this is just general scooter maintenance. If for some reason you don't shut the scooter off and you forget to chain it up, and then somebody takes your scooter and drives 2 counties away, you're going to have a nice, interesting charge on your credit card. So
You're better off. Listen, the scooters are death traps. Trust me. Don't use the damn scooters. You're asking for trouble.
everybody always uses the scooters, man. I don't know. It's like a toy.
I see them all over San Diego.
It's
my-
No,
my-
Ken, that's Keith. Those days are long gone. There's a few of them. There's only 2 companies left out of 7, and due to people getting constantly hurt and more stringent regulations, they're very, very rapidly declining. And I'm glad that they are.
Yeah, my daughter's at SDSU, so they're near the campus. That's probably why I see them more.
Walter has his own scooter, says that they rock. Well, of course, if you own the scooter, but then you can't just park that and leave it for somebody else, right? You got to bring your scooter with you. So I'm sure Walter already has one of those ones that folds up and just throws on his back or something. So it's the company
take the scooter to the airport next time I fly.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure
Sure.
you will.
Just like a
I'm sure
scooter
Keith.
race. You can set some scooter races.
Yeah, 100%. Just be careful that they're not too late at night. Not that, Washington, D.C. won't stop you in the middle of the, broad daylight, but I digress. All right. Well, stay tuned. I hope to see a bunch of you in person a few days from now in the nation's capital. Otherwise, come back Tuesday and Thursday. We're going to recap all of it here on MSP Initiative Live. Steve, thanks for joining. I think we learned some stuff here because, man, we speculate all day long, but you've been in it. So it's nice to hear real world,
Yeah,
And
thanks for your time.
for anyone that thinks Steve might be able to give them a little bit of help, where can they find you, Steve?
I would just say Steve at choicecybersolutions.com. Happy to answer any of your questions or concerns.
Awesome.
Steve's going to
Appreciate
be
it,
at
guys.
DattoCon too, I believe, right?
Oh,
I
yeah.
sure am, right. We'll have
You're
a
having
booth
a party.
at, yeah.
Yeah. So they got a booth.
Party in a booth with Steve. We love it. All right. Take it easy, guys. Catch you on the flip side. Have a good weekend.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.